Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Sulia podcast. My name is Safo Kwame Ohenebe. This is not the best news I would want to start the episode on. I mean, people who've watched this podcast for a while, I'll put the link to my TikTok because I lost the video on YouTube. I had a full-length episode on Okraku himself as a person and why he's failed as GFA president. This was after we failed to even qualify for the AFCON. But then today, late in the days of today, this was published by 3 Sports. That is the GFA, which is led by this man, Ket Edwin Simeon Okraku, is seeking a third term and is seeking to change the GFA rules by going through Congress to run for a third term. So a little bit of backdrop. Before this guy became GFA president, there was a man called Kwesi Nyantakyi, who was GFA president from 2006 and was ousted because of corruption-related issues. And let's be honest, Nyantakyi's downfall was easier to happen because it happened easily because his popularity had dwindled on the backdrop of the 2014 AFCON, 2014 World Cup disaster, and on the backdrop of our inability to qualify for the Russian 2018 World Cup. His popularity had dwindled, so he was caught in a corruption scandal, rightly removed. And after he was removed, the mindset was Ghana as a country, especially after the disgrace we had suffered in 2014, we had to reset our country, we had to reset our football, and we needed fresh ideas. There was a nominalization committee, and one of the biggest challenges we were facing as a country is the idea of a tin god, or idea of a one person who is at the centerpiece of elections, who rigs elections. It's not democratic, it's autocratic in and of itself. We need fresh ideas. We need a democratic system whereby people can serve their 2 terms, go, come back, fresh ideas, till we get the basics right. This was why we went through the nominalization committee. This is why we had new government. This is why we were preventing tin gods. This is why we needed someone who listened to the masses. 2019, Okraku is elected as the new GFA president. Personally, he was going against Palmer. Was it Palmer? George, one of them. But one guy who was the vice president for Nyantakyi. Personally, I had no qualms with Ket because he had worked within the FA Cup, had innovative and fresh ideas up for him. He was accessible to the media. He had nice coverage. He had a nice theme about him. So no one had a qualms. Also, we thought that things were going to be rosy. He heads over in June, July of 2019 after a round of 16 exit in the AFCON. But little did we know. These are the stages of, we thought it was going to be honky-dory, but these were the stages of unpopularity of Okraku. This is the first one, popularity number 1. He passed this comment that I will never work with my enemy. This is shortly after Okraku won the elections. He just declared that George Free, who he contested, and said, if people didn't know anyone he contested with who did not want his well-being, he's never going to work with them in the FA. And this was wrong because we were coming back from a very tumultuous reign of Nyantakyi. The best thing you could do is have unity, work together with. There are a lot of big wigs in the whole GFA structure, but then he said this. But these are things people can let go. So we let it go because it's just a mere talk. But then these are one of the examples of, and I don't mean to be offensive in my language, but a lack of emotional intelligence in speech for someone of that caliber. So the second level of issue, I wouldn't even call this a scandal, was when Okraku came in, he appointed former Santo Kotoko, former Dreams FC coach, a friend or a colleague of his, CK Akono, as the head coach of Black Stars. Everything honky-dory, but the Black Stars were not playing great football like everybody expected. And there were always the inclusion of strange names and strange players who people didn't know, and people knew that they were right from Okraku's team, which is Dreams FC, or these players were affiliated to Okraku. There was a talk of all of that. And so CK Akono was asked about this severally, and there were innuendos that his job was being interfered with, and the players he selected were never from him. Sometimes there could be players on the team sheet he didn't know anything about. Fast forward, CK Akono was fired. But then let's watch this interview between Gary Al Smith and Okraku involving this whole CK Akono scandal.
Do you trust CK Akono's judgment as Black Stars coach?
If we don't, he will not be there.
Do you trust him?
If we don't, he will not be there.
Do you subject his collapse to editing?
Collapse for national teams go through processes, and these people must understand. Gone were those days where one person will wake up one day and there's a collapse. It will never happen again. This is a system that is administered everywhere in the world, not in Ghana. There's nowhere that one single individual makes collapse.
So what you are saying is that CK Akono does not, when we see list of Black Stars players coming
the list
out,
has gone through a process.
So it is not totally CK's preferred.
The list has gone through a process, and is the responsibility of the head coach to convince everybody along the line why Gary is coming and why Kurt is coming and why Azerbaijan is not coming. So if the coach wants the player, the player comes.
The player comes.
The player comes.
So yes or no question. Do you impose players on CK Akono?
Nobody imposes players on CK Akono.
You have not imposed any players.
Nobody.
So what we heard about CK telling my colleague journalists that certain players in this last Black Stars call-up were not there because of him.
Okay. So I have not heard CK speak to this, and I doubt CK will say to anybody that somebody is.
So in that Gary Al Smith Okraku interview, there is nothing. Ket says he doesn't impose players on CK Akono, but then says in another breath that it's done nowhere that a head coach will bring a list of players and then the players will be allowed to play. I mean, he didn't say it clearly, but again, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. But let's forget about that. He fires CK Akono, appoints Milovan Rajvac. We go for the 2021 AFCON in Cameroon, and Ghana is eliminated in the group stage. The first time since 2006. That had never happened before. Ghana gets eliminated. It's not about the elimination. Kurt comes back, and on his first interview as to Ghana's elimination, this is what Kurt has to tell Ghana, that Ghana has no Messi or Ronaldo type for them to be called up. But then there was a player who conveniently, Philemon Bafo, who plays for Kurt's Dreams FC, who was called up. It was criticized for a very bad and horrible team selection. But this is what the FA president had to tell Ghanaians when he came back. No sign of apology, no remorse, nothing. Again, a second stint of lack of emotional intelligence when it comes to someone who occupies that position. What will be the main bane or the main disadvantage, or why Kurt will be so unpopular, was essentially the performances of the Black Stars. Because Ghana is crazy about their Black Stars. Black Stars is like the best thing for Ghana. Like they go gaga for it. People go crazy for Black Stars. And if you look at this graph, Kurt took over in 2019. And since Kurt took over in 2019, Ghana got eliminated in 2021 at the group stage in Cameroon. Then when they followed up to their next World Cup, and this was after Kurt changing coaches. I mean, some people say Chris Hilton was imposed on him. Whatever the story is, it was still a coach under Kurt's tenure. We go to Ivory Coast, and Ghana again does not qualify. And you know the crazy thing about that, not is Ghana not just qualifying from the group stages. Ghana, since Kurt Okraku took over as GFA president, has failed to win a single game at the African Cup of Nations. Like, that's crazy. That's 8 games, that's 6 games in the AFCON, which Ghana has not won a single game. And we can go through. Ghana lost 1-0 to Morocco. Ghana drew 1-1 with Gabon. Ghana lost 3-2 to Comoros. Then the subsequent AFCON, Ghana loses 2-1 to Cape Verde. Ghana draws 2-2 with Egypt. And then Ghana draws 2-2 with Mozambique. 6 AFCON games since Kurt Okraku took over. Ghana has not won a single game, which shows a steep decline from what he came to meet over. But then, we've not gotten to the worst part. You think it gets worse? You think it gets worse? Watch this. It's chaos. Kurt Okraku. And you know, I know people say, oh, but he's not the head of the Black Stars. But then you see, there are certain metrics GFA presidents in Ghana are measured on. And the Black Stars performance is one of the metric. Ghana failed to qualify for the AFCON for the first time in 20 years. This was just last year. First time in 20 years. It's preposterous to think that Ghana is not going to the African Cup of Nations. Ghana is like the third most successful team at the African Cup of Nations. Ghana failed to qualify under Okraku's tenure. So it's very understandable that his popularity had declined off. But then again, for the very first time in Ghanaian football, right after the AFCON, there was a big demonstration against Okraku. Like, for the first time, football demonstration. A lot of people attended. I, for one, was there. Go through my YouTube channel. First video is on this demonstration about how people didn't want Ket. Do you know the crazy thing? People thought after Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana would reset, find a new coach, and then everything is glamorous, or we are attempting to get back on our feet. There were lots of managers who applied for the Ghanaian job. People who applied for the Ghanaian job, and the Ghana Football Association, headed by Okraku, had a criteria for: you have to have this amount of experience, you need to have this, you need to have that to be able to have the Ghanaian job. People have the criteria because it meant that if it's 7 years in coaching, if it's yada yada yada, if you're meeting that, that means you have that experience to manage the Black Stars. That's something we had been lacking for quite a while. We had Siki Akono, even Chris Hughton had the experience, but then still to a point disappointed, but we needed the experience. What happens? People apply, and guess what? On the day of the demonstration, the GFA causing Otuado, who is one of Ket's favorite guy, causing Otuado, and then they literally have an interview for the guy and then hand him over the job. Didn't apply, didn't meet any of the criteria the GFA set. So Otuado was the coach who then spearheaded the 2025 African Cup of Nations qualifiers, and this was the result. And that's the reason why Ghana did not make it to the African Cup of Nations for the first time in 20 years, and that got people livid because you had the opportunity to do the right thing. You had a reset opportunity and you somehow blew it. But let's say Ket is not all that bad. I would like Victoria Comey to give you her opinion on what she thinks about Ket, especially after the 2025 disaster.
I still think that the first thing the GFA president should be doing is taking responsibility about the fact that he has supervised the worst ever spell for Ghana in 5 years. Back-to-back exit at the Nations Cup at the first round, and now not qualifying. In any serious country, heads must be rolling, or people must have the integrity or the standard enough to say that I had ideas, I wanted to do well, I wanted to win the Nations Cup, and now that we do not qualify, it is important that I step aside because perhaps my ideas are no longer working. And I haven't even seen that in his post. And I also disagree that he seemed to think that the highest of the highest, per the quote, was qualifying for the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. No. In 2010, we were almost semi-finalists at the World Cup, so it cannot be the height of height. You have failed as an FA president. I mean, the evidence is so telling. So I do not think that he should be there in the first place. But would he have the courage and the standard to know that having disappointed the nation so much, he should step down? It's something I can't really imagine will happen, because if I look at the tone of his post, it tells me that he feels he should be around. It's been 5 years, and you cannot say that the normalization or post-normalization, whatever, is still well underway. It is not. When you qualified the nation for the Nation Cup, the World Cup, you were gloating all over the place and taking the credit. You have failed. You must do the same, I'm afraid.
And again, I perfectly agree with Victoria Comey's sentiment. Everything she said, true. But you see, let's say we'll give Ket his flowers. Let's say he's not done all that bad. Because one of the things Ket likes to revel in as an FA leader is he qualified us for the Qatar 2022 World Cup. Let's be honest, anybody who watched that Qatar 2022 World Cup knew that Ghana does not even know how Ghana qualified. But let's give him his credit. We were there for the taking. Nigeria refused to beat us. We beat Nigeria, still made it for Qatar. I don't want to even get into all the scandal that the Qatar World Cup came with management members receiving huge sums of money for just managing. Let's put that aside. But like Victoria was saying, the Qatar World Cup shouldn't be Ghana's story. You came to meet something. You came to meet Ghana being a kick away from the semi-finals of the World Cup. So qualifying is not something that should excite us that much. We've been to better heights and we want to transcend those things. But let's say we give you your flowers on that. You took that in high esteem because whenever we see anything bad, it's against kids. You took that in a high stride. Now let's look at this. Since I started following football, I have never in my life heard of Ghana being banned for something. But then under this same tenure, the under-17 women's national team were banned for age cheating. Kurt is not directly responsible for it, but he is the head of the GFA and has fiduciary responsibilities and is supposed to be the one who has oversight over this, but then failed in his oversight. So these are the things that have piled up. And mind you, I have not even spoken about so many things. There are the issue of the buses and all of that. But this is my message to Kurt, especially looking at he having this funny idea of running for a third term. This might not necessarily be just a Kurt thing. It might be a whole FA thing. It might be a whole Ghana government thing. This is money. Like, this is money Mali receives from FIFA and what they use that money for and how they put that into infrastructure and things like that. Because besides the Black Stars, the local league is struggling from hooliganism. People are dying whilst visiting games. Stadiums are not safe. The product which the Ghana Football Association is supposed to be in charge of, which is the Ghana Premier League, is in tatters. So it's not just about the Black Stars. You're failing on that. When people ask, what has kept done with the FIFA money? Because FIFA has given us so much money. We cannot point to a tangible thing. The only tangible thing you can point to as the FA doing is renovation of Pram Pram, which they claim were supposed to host national team members. But if you see their facility, not even Black Stars players would want to sleep over there. So what makes you think that millions of dollars received from FIFA, we cannot touch it, we cannot feel it, and that's the problem. But again, on Kurt, and the reason why he wants to run, I don't think anyone at all would have had a problem with you running for a third term if you delivered. And even delivering does not necessarily mean Black Stars qualifying, or it's about you playing your administrative well in such a way that you have done your part. And if people feel that's not on you, if you appoint the best of coaches and they feel that's not on you, if you give if you are very vigilant when it comes to age checking and everything, and they feel that's not on you, but you fail in your main duty. So if you failed in your main duty, you don't expect people to still clamor for you winning the third term. But then there's this talk about football people will vote for him, football people will vote for him. And my message to the football people is this: we are supposed to be living in a democracy, but it seems it's only in the football world which there is a prominent autocracy, because the only reason Kurt had a second term was any other opponent who could have gone up against Kurt was legally removed, did not fulfill their forms, and so there was nobody to contest him because they were all taken away because they didn't fulfill the requirement. Again, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. I know that there's this whole football thing, but then at the end of the day, we are rational people. This is not a man who has performed. This is not a man who has given us the successes we expected as a country. As a country, he has not performed. He has not lived up to the expectation. The question is, where did he find the GFA when he came in? What were the performances of the Black Stars? What were the performances of people, the things he loved? The GFA brand that was so attractive that he ran for a position, and he was democratically contested with all other people who were all allowed to contest him, and he won. He should look back on that and see the kind of system he's running now, and then if he can prominently tell us that this is a system he's proud of. I think within him himself, he knows he's not lived up to the target he wants. That's why he wants a third term, because he believes in his sauce. But your sauce is just not saucing. It's whack sauce. Just allow fresh ideas. Even if we are not going to get it right with fresh ideas, just allow fresh ideas to take over till we get it right. I don't know who might listen to this. I don't know who will listen to this. I don't know who would want to do anything on this. But the onus apparently does not lie on us, the citizens. The citizens who, without us, their product, which is the football product, will not work. Apparently, our voice does not matter. It's only the football people. And if you're a football person, your club is suffering, you're not making any money, people don't go to your stadiums, and all of that. You think it's prudent for you to alter a constitution to get a third term, to have a tin god, then we are beyond saving. Bye.